Bodice, culture, fashion, and craft.
Hello everyone, you're welcome to Otis Culture. In today's tutorial, I will be showing us on how to draft a shirt dress on a pattern paper, just like the one that I'm wearing. It is very easy to make. Before we continue, I want to say a very big thank you to all my subscribers. I really appreciate you all. And if you're yet to join the family, all you need to do is to click on the red button down below to subscribe to my channel, and also click on the notification bell and select the all options so that whenever I upload a new video, you will be notified. So without further ado, let's move right to the tutorial. I have my basic lines drawn out already. This is my starting line. At this line, I'm going to insert my shoulder measurements. From this straight line to this side is 3 inches. I have 3 inches. This is for the overlap for the button. Then shoulder to my chest line is 10 inches. This is my chest line. Shoulder to my bust point line is 12.5 inches. Reason why I'm having bust point line is because I want to insert a waist dart to this pattern. Shoulder to my waist is 17 inches. This is my waistline. Shoulder to my hip is 25 inches. This is my hip line, and the length of my pattern paper is 39. But when I'm cutting on fabric, I'm going to increase the length to 43. So the next thing I'm going to do is to insert my shoulder measurements. I am assuming that I am drafting on my fabric, so I'm going to add seam allowance to this pattern paper. My shoulder measurement is 18 inches. 18 inches divided by 2 is 9 inches. I will be needing half an inch to join with the sleeve, which will give me 9.5 inches. So from this straight line, that is where I will start imputing all my measurements from this straight line. So I'm going to insert 9.5 inches for my shoulder measurement. I'll be making use of neck width of 3 inches. This is the front bodice. I'll be making use of neck depth of 3 inches. This is the front bodice. Neck width of 3 inches, neck depth of 3 inches. With my French curve, I'll connect the neckline. From my shoulder measurement, I'm going to measure 1 inch downward for my shoulder slope. I'm going to impute my shoulder measurement at my chest line. This is to help me rule a straight line. With my straight ruler, I'm going to connect from my shoulder slope to the chest line for my armhole depth. Next is to impute my bust span measurement. Bust span is the distance between from one nipple to another. Mine is 9 inches. It is usually divided by 2. 9 inches divided by 2 is 4.5 inches. So at the bust point line, I'm going to measure 4.5 inches. I'll move to the hip line. I'm going to measure same 4.5 inches. This is a guideline to help insert a waist dart. I'll connect into a straight line. This is a guideline to help insert a waist dart. I'm going to measure 1 inch downward. I'll move to the hip line. I'm going to measure 2 inches upward. Standard waist dart is 1 inch. So I'm going to measure half an inch on the left, half an inch on the right from the waist line. Half an inch, half an inch. With my ruler, I'm going to connect the darts together. I'm going to connect from the half an inch to this 1 inch that came down from the bust point line. Then I'm going to connect from this half an inch to these 2 inches that we came up with from the hip line. Moving to the chest line, I'm going to insert my bust measurement. My bust measurement is 44 inches. 44 inches divided by 4 is 11 inches. I'll be needing half an inch ease, which will make it 11.5. I will also be needing 1 inch seam allowance to join the front and the back bodies together in total, which will make it 12.5 inches. This is 11.5 inches plus 1 inch seam allowance. We have taken away 1 inch waist dart from the waist, so I'm going to replace it back to the waist measurement. My waist measurement is 40 inches. 40 inches divided by 4 is 10 inches. Plus this 1 inch waist dart that we are taking away from the waist, it will be 11 inches. I will be needing half an inch ease allowance, which will be 11.5 inches. I will also be needing 1 inch seam allowance to join the front and the back bodies together, which will be 12.5 inches. So at the waistline, I'm going to impute 12.5 inches. 11.5 inches plus 1 inch seam allowance. My hip measurement is 50 inches. 50 inches divided by 4 is 12.5. I will be needing half an inch ease allowance, which will be 13 inches. I will be needing 1 inch seam allowance to join the front and the back bodies together, which will be 14 inches. So at the hip line, I'm going to insert 14 inches. 13 inches plus 1 inch seam allowance, making it 14 inches. The same measurement that I have on the hip line, I'm going to impute the same measurement on the lower part of the dress. Then with my hip curve, I'm going to connect from the waist to the hip. With a straight ruler, I'm going to connect from the hip to the lower part of the dress. Next is to measure the armhole depth and find the midpoint. My armhole depth is 9 inches. Midpoint of 9 inches is 4.5. From the midpoint, I'm going to measure 3/4. Then with my French curve, I will connect the armhole shape. Because I'm assuming that I'm drafting on my fabric, I'm going to add half an inch seam allowance at the shoulder. From this neckline, I'm going to draw a straight line to this seam allowance. From this neckline, I'm going to draw a straight line to the seam allowance for the overlap button. So I'm going to cut from this first straight like this to neckline. is the pattern paper for the back bodice. I have the same lines drawn out already. Chest, bust point line, waistline, and hip line is the same measurement with the front bodice. So moving on, at the starting line, this is my starting line. I'm going to insert my shoulder measurement. Same measurements with the front, 9.5 inches. Same neck width with the front, 3 inches neck width. For the back bodice, I'm going to make use of 1 inch neck depth. Three inches neck width, same neck width with the front. For the back, I'm making use of 1 inch neck depth. From my shoulder, I'm going to measure 1 inch downward for the shoulder slope. From the 1 inch, I will connect to the neck width. I'm going to impute my shoulder measurement at my chest line. This is to help me rule a straight line. From the shoulder slope, I'm going to connect my armhole depth with a straight line. I'm going to, at the bust point line, I'm going to impute my bust span measurement, 4.5 inches. I'll move to the hip line. I'm going to impute the same measurement, 4.5 inches. I'm going to connect into a straight line. Back waist dart is usually longer in length than the front waist dart. So from the bust point line, I'm going to measure 1 inch upward. Remember that for the front bodies, I measure 1 inch downward from the bust point line. But for the back bodies, I'm going to measure 1 inch upward. I'll move to the hip line. Remember that for the front waist dart, I measured 2 inches upward, but for the back waist dart, I'm going to measure 1 inch upward. I'm going to measure 1/2 inch on both sides for my waist dart, making it 1 inch. I'm going to connect from the 1/2 inch to this 1 inch. I'm going to connect the darts together from the 1/2 inch to the 1 inch. Then I'm going to connect from the half an inch to the 1 inch before the hip line. At the chest line, I'm going to insert my bust measurement. The same measurement that I inserted on the front pattern paper is the same measurement that I'm going to insert on the back pattern paper as well. My bust measurement is 44 inches. 44 inches divided by 4 is 11, plus half an inch is allowance, which will make it 11.5, plus 1 inch seam allowance, which will make it 12.5. This is 12.5. Moving to the waist, my waist measurement. Moving to the waist, my waist measurement is 40 inches. 40 inches divided by 4 is 10 inches. Plus 1 inch waist dart is 11 inches. Plus half an inch is allowance is 11.5 inches. Plus 1 inch seam allowance to join the front and the back bodies together is 12.5 inches. My hip measurement is 50 inches. 50 inches divided by 4 is 12.5, plus half an inch is allowance is 13 inches, plus 1 inch seam allowance to join the front and the back bodies together is 14 inches. I'm going to impute this same 14 inches to the lower part of the dress. With my straight ruler, I'm going to connect from my chest line to the waistline. Then with my hip curve, I'm going to connect from the waist to the hip. Then with my straight ruler, I'm going to connect from the hip to the lower part of the dress. I will measure my armhole depth, which is 9 inches. I'm going to find the midpoint, which will be 4.5 inches. I'm going to connect for my back armhole. I'm going to connect from the 4.5 inches to the chest line. From the midpoint to the chest line for the back armhole. Then I'm going to add half an inch seam allowance at the shoulder. how to draft back bodice of your shirt dress with a waist dart. So the next is for me to cut it out. This is how to draft front bodice and back bodice of a shirt dress with a waist dart. In my next tutorial, I'm going to show us on how to use this pattern to cut on the fabric and how to sew your shirt dress. And I'm also going to teach us on how to draft the shirt collar and the sleeve. We've come to an end of today's tutorial. If you find my tutorial helpful, please give me a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel if you've not done so. I upload weekly tutorial on my channel. Until I come your way next, please stay safe and remain blessed. Bye.